The giant alien ship landed on the United Nations Plaza in New York with a soft hum. It was the 5th visit from the Galactic Empire in 3 years. Each time before, they had given humans new tests and challenges. Earth had passed them all. Today was supposed to be the day they would welcome humanity into their vast empire of 10,000 worlds. Admiral George Hudson adjusted his uniform as he waited with the Earth delegation. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his fingers tapped nervously against his leg. After 30 years in the Space Forces, he thought he had seen everything. Then the aliens came and changed everything. "They're late," said Dr. Samantha Miller. As Earth's chief diplomat to the aliens, she had spent more time with them than anyone. She understood their strange customs and complex language better than any human alive. George nodded. "They're never late. Something's wrong." The ship's doors finally opened. 3 tall aliens walked out. They had blue skin that seemed to glow slightly in the sunlight. Each had 4 eyes, 2 large ones where human eyes would be, and 2 smaller, ones above them. They wore simple white robes with the golden spiral symbol of the Empire. Zorthak, the leader, stepped forward. His upper eyes blinked slowly while his lower eyes stayed fixed on the humans. "Representatives of Earth," he said, in his musical voice. "The Galactic Council has reached its decision regarding your application for membership." The crowd of officials and reporters grew quiet. Cameras focused on the aliens. This moment would be remembered in human history forever. "Your application has been denied," Zorthak said. A wave of shocked whispers spread through the crowd. George felt his face grow hot with anger. "On what grounds?" Samantha asked, her voice steady despite the surprise. "We have met every requirement. We've shown technological advancement. We've unified our planet. We've maintained global peace for 50 years." Zorthak raised a 6-fingered hand. "The requirements are not just about technology and politics. We also study the psychology and behavior of species. Humans have shown too many concerning traits." "What traits?" George demanded. "Unpredictability, aggression, a drive to dominate, rather than cooperate." The alien's voice remained calm, almost sad. "Our deepest studies show these traits are part of your very nature. They cannot be removed without destroying what makes you human." President Olivia Bennett stepped forward. She was a tall woman with gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "We have worked for decades to prove ourselves worthy. We have changed our entire society based on your guidance." "And yet," said Zorthak, "when faced with our tests, you did not follow expected paths. You found unusual solutions. You took risks our scientists considered unnecessary. You showed creativity that our predictive models could not anticipate." "Those are strengths, not weaknesses," Samantha argued. "They are dangerous in a connected galaxy," another alien said. The council vote was unanimous. Earth will remain isolated. Zorthak looked at them with what seemed like pity. "The decision is final. Earth is prohibited from joining the Galactic Empire. You must remain within your solar system. Any attempt to travel beyond it will be considered an act of aggression and will be met with force." The aliens turned and walked back to their ship without another word. Minutes later, they were gone, leaving humans alone with their anger and disappointment. That evening, President Bennett called an emergency meeting in the White House Situation Room. Around the large table sat the most important people on Earth: military leaders, scientists, business owners, and politicians from every continent. "They've confined us to our own solar system," President Bennett said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes showed her anger. "After 50 years of peace and progress, they still see us as dangerous children." "Maybe we are dangerous," said General Maria Sanchez, commander of Earth's defense forces. She was a small woman with short black hair and a reputation for brilliant strategy. "But only to those who threaten us." "We met every single benchmark they established," said Dr. Richard Patel, the quantum physicist whose work had revolutionized space travel. He was normally quiet in meetings, but today his voice shook with emotion. "Our technology, our society, our environmental recovery, all of it exceeded their expectations. And yet they fear us, said Daniel Wright, the CEO of Global Aerospace. His company had built the first Mars colony. They see our creativity and adaptability as threats rather than assets. Admiral Hudson spoke up. The alien said something important. He said we find unusual solutions. We take unexpected paths. That's exactly why they fear us, and it's exactly why they should. The room grew quiet as everyone looked at him. What are you suggesting, George? Asked the president. They want us to stay in our solar system? Fine. We have 9 planets, hundreds of moons, thousands of asteroids. We have resources to last centuries. Let's use them. He leaned forward. Let's build ships unlike anything they've seen. Let's develop technology they haven't imagined. If they won't let us join their empire, we'll create something better. Samantha Miller shook her head. Their ships patrol the edges of our system. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. How could we possibly compete? We don't compete, openly, said General Sanchez, catching on to Hudson's idea. We work in secret. We appear to accept their rules while preparing to break them. Dr. Patel had been quiet, but now he looked up with excitement in his eyes. My team has been working on something. A new type of drive that could potentially move through space without creating the energy signatures their sensors detect. It's theoretical now, but with proper funding. You'll have it, President Bennett said immediately. Whatever you need. She stood up and looked around the table. Today, the Galactic Empire showed us who they truly are. They talk about peace and cooperation, but they rule through fear and control. They've confined us to our solar system because they're afraid of what we might become. She smiled for the first time that day. So let's show them exactly why they should be afraid. If they won't let us join their empire, then perhaps it's time we considered building our own. As the meeting continued deep into the night, plans began to take shape. Project Phoenix, they called it. Humanity rising from the ashes of rejection to create something new. Little did the Galactic Empire know that their greatest mistake was giving humans a challenge. Nothing motivated humans more than being told what they couldn't do. 5 years passed since Earth's rejection from the Galactic Empire. On the surface, humans appeared to accept their fate. They continued to develop their solar system, building larger colonies on Mars and mining operations on the asteroids. The alien patrols at the edge of the solar system reported nothing unusual. As far as the Empire knew, humans were staying within their boundaries. But 200 feet beneath the lunar surface, hidden from prying eyes and scanning technology, Project Phoenix was taking shape. Dr. Richard Patel wiped sweat from his forehead as he made final adjustments to the quantum field generator. The room was filled with humming machines and glowing screens. Dozens of scientists worked at different stations, all focused on the same goal. "How's it looking, Richard?" asked Dr. Alan Garcia, his assistant and friend for 20 years. Alan handed him a cup of coffee, which Richard took gratefully. "Better than expected," Richard said. "The Empire thinks their technology is so superior, but they never considered what rejection would do to us. It didn't break our spirit. It made us more determined." The quantum drive was humanity's greatest achievement, a propulsion system that could bend space and time without creating the energy waves that Empire sensors were designed to detect. It was like moving through the shadows of space itself. President Bennett is coming to see the first test today, Alan reminded him. Richard nodded and took a deep breath. After 5 years of work, they were finally ready to see if their theories would become reality. Meanwhile, in orbit around Neptune, Captain Elizabeth Stone prepared for the most important mission of her life. The UES Pathfinder was humanity's first stealth vessel. From the outside, it looked like a small mining ship, but hidden beneath its ordinary exterior were technologies that would change humanity's future. Elizabeth floated through the ship's bridge, checking each station. Her crew of 20 represented the best minds Earth had to offer. Scientists, engineers, and soldiers, all united by a common purpose. "Captain, we're receiving the secure transmission from Lunar Base," said Lieutenant Paul Johnson from the communications station. "Put it through," Elizabeth ordered. The screen lit up to show the face of President Bennett. At 62, she looked older than when Project Phoenix began. The stress of leading humanity's secret rebellion had left its mark. "Captain Stone, is your ship ready?" the president asked. "Yes, Madam President. All systems are green. We're just waiting for the go signal." "Good. The test begins in 1 hour. If successful, you'll proceed with Phase 2. Elizabeth nodded. Phase 2 was the real mission: to travel beyond the solar system and establish the first human outpost in another star system. It was an act of direct disobedience to the Empire's orders. If caught, the consequences would be severe, but it was a risk they had to take. Back on the moon, President Bennett and several military leaders gathered in a small observation room. Through a thick glass window, they could see the test chamber where Dr. Patel's quantum drive prototype sat ready. "Will it work?" General Maria Sanchez asked quietly. "If anyone can make it work, Richard can," the president replied. "He's been obsessed with this project." Inside the test chamber, Richard made the final preparations. The quantum drive was smaller than most people expected. Just a sphere about 3 feet in diameter with a complex array of crystals and circuits inside. "Beginning test sequence," Richard announced into his microphone. "Power at 10%. The sphere began to glow with a soft blue light. Screens around the room showed readings of energy levels and quantum field stability. 20%, 30%. The glow grew brighter. The air around the sphere seemed to shimmer, as if reality itself was bending. 40%, 50%. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Red lights flashed. "Have a quantum field instability," Alan shouted. "The containment is failing." Richard's fingers flew over the controls, rerouting power through the secondary circuits, adjusting field harmonics. In the observation room, everyone held their breath. If the quantum field collapsed, the explosion would destroy half the lunar base. "Stabilizing at 60%, Richard announced after tense seconds. Field integrity restored. The alarms went silent. The sphere now pulsed with steady blue light, and a perfect bubble of distorted space surrounded it. "It works," Richard whispered, his voice filled with awe. "It actually works." The observation room erupted in cheers and applause. President Bennett smiled for the first time in months. This was the breakthrough they had been waiting for. Far away near Neptune, Captain Stone received the news. "Quantum drive test successful," came the encoded message. "Proceed with Phase 2. "You heard them," she told her crew. "Prepare for quantum fold." Lieutenant Johnson began the countdown. "Quantum fold in 10, 9, 8. The crew strapped themselves into their seats. No one knew exactly what the jump would feel like. 3 and 2, engaging. The Pathfinder shimmered and disappeared from normal space. For a brief, terrifying moment, Elizabeth felt like her body was being pulled in 1,000 different directions. Then suddenly, everything was normal again. "Status report," she ordered, trying to keep her voice steady. "All systems operational." "Captain," reported her second in command. "No damage to the ship or crew." "Where are we, Lieutenant Johnson?" Paul checked the navigation systems, his eyes widening. We're exactly where we aimed for. Alpha Centauri system, 4 light years. From Earth, the jump took less than 5 seconds. Elizabeth looked at the view screen, which showed an alien sun and planets that no human had ever seen up close before. "Any sign of Empire sensors or ships?" "None, Captain. As far as we can tell, our passage went completely undetected. For the first time in years, Elizabeth allowed herself to feel real hope. "Begin scanning for habitable planets. We're going to find our new home." Back on Earth, in his office beneath the Pentagon, Admiral George Hudson received the encrypted message. "The bird has left the nest." He smiled to himself. Phase 2 had begun. The Pathfinder had successfully left the solar system without detection. It would now search for suitable planets for human colonization. General Sanchez entered his office without knocking. "Have you heard?" "Just now," George replied. "It worked." "And the Empire?" Their patrols haven't changed pattern. They suspect nothing. Maria sat down heavily in the chair across from him. So we've done it. We've taken the first step. George nodded. The first of many. If the Pathfinder finds a suitable planet, we begin Phase 3, the construction of more ships and the first colony beyond our solar system. And if the Empire discovers us? George's expression hardened. Then we fight, but by the time they realize what we're doing, it will be too late to stop us. Humanity will have spread too far. He looked at the star map on his wall, imagining a future where those stars held human colonies and outposts. The Empire made one critical mistake. They thought they could cage us, but no one can cage the human spirit forever. 20 years had passed since the Pathfinder's first journey beyond Earth's solar system. What began as a single ship's desperate mission had grown into something the Galactic Empire never imagined possible. The human colony on Proxima Centauri, B, named New Horizon, had grown to a population of 50,000. From orbit, it looked like a small cluster of domes and towers surrounded by farms and solar arrays. It was humanity's first true foothold among the stars, but far from the Har. Last Governor Susan Harris walked through the main hydroponic farm with Agricultural Director Frank Williams. The huge room was filled with rows of plants growing under special lights. Workers moved between the plants, checking the equipment and harvesting vegetables. The new system is working better than we expected, Frank said proudly. Food production is up 20% from last year. Susan nodded with satisfaction. That means we're 3 years ahead of schedule for food independence. Yes, Governor. We no longer need supply ships from Earth for basic food. This was important news. Every ship that traveled between Earth and the colonies risked detection by the Empire. The fewer ships needed, the safer everyone would be. How are the new settlers adjusting? Susan asked as they left the farm and walked through the colony's main corridor. Most are doing well. The Earth-like gravity helps. Some miss the open sky, but the recreation areas with their simulated environments help with that. Susan understood the feeling. She had been on New Horizon for 7 years and still sometimes longed to feel real wind on her face or see birds flying in a blue sky. The colony's artificial environment couldn't perfectly match Earth, but it kept people healthy and safe. What the Empire didn't understand about humans was their ability to adapt. In just 20 years, humanity had spread to 17 different star systems. Each colony faced unique challenges and found unique solutions. On the frozen world of Epsilon Eridani C, colonists had built vast cities underground, warmed by the planet's natural heat from below. On the desert planet orbiting Tau Ceti, engineers had created massive machines that pulled water from the thin air. Meanwhile, Earth maintained its act of compliance. The official story, which the Empire's monitors observed, showed humans focusing on developing Mars and the asteroid belt. Special technology made it appear that Earth's population and industry were growing only within the solar system. In reality, 1 in every 100 Earth citizens was being secretly prepared for life on distant worlds. The selection process was careful and thorough, choosing people with needed skills and the right mindset for colonial life. In orbit around Saturn's moon Titan, hidden by the gas giant's interference, Admiral Elizabeth Stone commanded the rapidly growing human fleet from her flagship, the UES Defiance. She had aged well in the 20 years since her first mission on the Pathfinder. Her hair was now silver, but her eyes were as sharp as ever. Today we finished our 100th ship, she announced to her officers gathered in the command center. The room erupted in applause. It was a milestone no one would have believed possible 20 years ago. The UES Independence is our first true battleship, she continued when the noise died down. We pray it never sees combat, but if the Empire discovers us, we must be ready to defend our people. One of her officers, Commander Ryan Cooper, raised a hand. Admiral, do you really think our ships could stand against the Empire's fleet? Their technology is still far beyond ours. Elizabeth smiled. 20 years ago, they were centuries ahead of us. Now, the gap is closing faster than they could possibly imagine. Remember, they think innovation comes slowly, through careful steps. They don't understand the power of necessity. The quantum communication network, another innovation born from humanity's need, allowed instant communication between all human settlements without detection. Through this network, the scattered colonies maintained unity despite vast distances. On Mars, in a research facility hidden beneath Olympus Mons, Dr. Richard Patel addressed the Human Coalition Council through a secure quantum link. His hair was now completely white, and he walked with a slight limp, but his mind remained as brilliant as ever. "We've made a breakthrough," he announced to the virtual gathering of leaders from Earth and all 17 colonies. "We've been studying the Empire's discarded technology, the scraps they left behind during their visits." He pointed to a holographic display showing a strange device. "They've overlooked possibilities that could change everything. Their technology follows very specific paths of development. They never explore alternatives. But we have." Back on Earth, in the Oval Office, President Andrew Mitchell listened intently to Dr. Patel's report. As the fourth president to oversee Project Phoenix, he carried the weight of humanity's greatest secret. "What you're suggesting," he said when Richard finished, "is that we could actually match their technological level within another decade." "Not match," Richard corrected. "Exceed, in certain areas. They have blind spots in their scientific understanding that we don't share." The president looked at the others in the room. Admiral Hudson, now the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Sanchez, gray-haired but still sharp as ever, and Dr. Samantha Miller, who had continued studying the aliens and their culture for 2 decades. "The Empire still has no idea what we're doing?" the president asked. "None," Samantha confirmed. "Their psychology works against them. They believe that once they make a decision, the matter is settled. They don't check for compliance because they can't imagine anyone would defy them. Their patrols follow the same patterns they established 20 years ago." "How long can we maintain the deception?" the president asked. George Hudson frowned. "That depends on how quickly we continue to expand. So far, we've chosen star systems. The Empire considers unimportant, but as we grow, the risk of discovery increases. Then we need to be ready when that day comes," the president decided. "Continue the expansion, but accelerate development of defensive technology." On the colony world of New Horizon, night had fallen. Governor Susan Harris stood at the viewport in her office looking at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Empire continued its business, unaware that a new power was rising in the spaces they had ignored. Her communication console chimed. It was a priority message from Earth. She read it quickly, then smiled. The Council had approved funding for 5 new colony ships and expansion of New Horizons manufacturing facilities. They thought they could keep us confined to one small corner of the galaxy, she said to herself. They never understood what happens when you tell humans they can't do something. In the darkness of space, humanity continued to spread like stars appearing one by one in the night sky. Each colony, a point of light, each ship a promise that no empire, no matter how ancient or powerful, could contain the human spirit forever. On a distant planet known to humans as HC-209, archaeologist Dr. Laura Mitchell wiped dust from her face as she examined the strange symbols on the wall. The underground chamber had been sealed for thousands of years before her team discovered it 3 days ago. "Kevin, look at this," she called to her colleague, Dr. Kevin Barnes. He hurried over, his flashlight beam bouncing across the ancient stone walls. "These symbols match the ones we found in the main chamber," he said, excitement clear in his voice. "I think this is another piece of their language." Laura and Kevin were part of a research team sent to HC-209 after sensors detected unusual energy readings. The planet had seemed uninhabited from orbit, just another world with breathable air and mild climate, perfect for another human colony. But what they found beneath the surface changed everything. "This civilization," Laura said, running her hand over the carved stone, "they called themselves the precursors according to these translations. And from what we can tell, they existed long before the Galactic Empire." Kevin nodded. "Not just before. I think they were the original architects of galactic civilization. Look at these star maps. Their territory covered almost the entire galaxy." "And then something happened," Laura said. "Something that led to their downfall." For 3 weeks, the team worked day and night to translate the ancient language and understand the history recorded on the walls. Each new discovery was immediately sent back to Earth through the quantum communication network. In the White House Situation Room, President Andrew Mitchell and his advisors reviewed the latest findings from HC 209. According to Dr. Mitchell's translations, said the science advisor, the precursors built a galactic civilization based on cooperation and shared advancement. They welcomed new species and helped them develop. Until they encountered the Alterans, Admiral Hudson added, the species that now rules the Empire. The holographic display showed images of the ancient texts with their translations. The Alterans were peaceful at first, accepted into the galactic community like any other species, but they had hidden ambitions. They studied the precursors' technology in secret, looking for weaknesses. And they found one, said the president. Yes. The precursors had created a network of quantum beacons throughout the galaxy. These beacons allowed instant travel and communication. The Alterans found a way to reprogram these beacons, turning them against their creators. General Sanchez leaned forward. So the current empire was founded on betrayal. It gets worse, said Dr. Samantha Miller, who had been analyzing the cultural implications. The records indicate the Alterans have been systematically isolating any species with the potential to challenge them. Earth isn't the first world they've prohibited from joining galactic society. So it was never about our aggression or unpredictability, the president said slowly. No, those were excuses. The real reason is that they recognized our potential. They saw in us what they fear most, a species that could innovate beyond their control. Back on HC 209, Laura and Kevin had discovered a sealed vault deep within, the ruins. After careful study of the locking mechanism, they managed to open it without damaging the contents. Inside, they found technology unlike anything humans had ever seen, crystalline devices that still glowed with power after thousands of years, data storage systems containing vast amounts of knowledge. This is incredible, Kevin whispered as they cataloged the discoveries. Some of these devices are still functioning, after all this time. Laura carefully lifted a small pyramid-shaped object that pulsed with soft blue light. According to the texts, this is a control key for the beacon network. The Alterans thought they destroyed all of these. But they missed. Some, Kevin said. And the network itself. The texts say the beacons were built to last for millions of years. What if they're still out there? Laura's eyes widened as she understood the implications. If we could find and reactivate these beacons, we could establish a presence throughout the galaxy almost overnight. We could connect with other species the Empire has isolated. They worked through the night studying the ancient technology and the maps showing the locations of the beacon network. When they finally sent their report through the quantum link, they knew they had discovered something that would change humanity's future forever. Admiral Elizabeth Stone received the report while her fleet conducted exercises near the colony. At Tau Ceti, she immediately called an emergency meeting of her senior officers. What we've discovered on HC 209 isn't just ancient history, she told them. It's a key to our future. She showed them the data from the archaeological team. The precursors built their beacons using principles similar to our quantum drives, but far more advanced. They placed these beacons throughout the galaxy, creating a network for travel and communication. And the Empire doesn't know about this network? Asked Commander Ryan Cooper. They know parts of it existed once, but they believe they destroyed or deactivated all the beacons long ago. What they don't know is that the beacons were designed to be self-repairing. They didn't really destroy them, they just put them into a dormant state. And we can wake them up, Ryan realized. Exactly. Dr. Mitchell and her team have decoded the activation protocols. They've also found maps showing the beacon locations. Elizabeth's face was serious, but her eyes showed excitement. This changes everything. We don't need to build an empire ship by ship, world by world. We can establish a presence throughout the galaxy almost immediately. On Earth, President Mitchell made a historic decision after consulting with the leaders of all human colonies. We will not use this discovery to seek revenge against the Empire, he announced to the Coalition Council. That would make us no better than the Alterans. Instead, we will build the kind of galaxy the precursors envisioned, one of cooperation rather than domination. The plan was set in motion. Specialized teams were dispatched to locate and reactivate the ancient beacons. The first was found orbiting, a dead star in a system the Empire had abandoned centuries ago. Using the control key found on HC-209, they awakened the beacon. It came to life slowly, energy flowing through circuits unused for millennia. When it reached full power, it connected automatically to other dormant beacons, creating a ripple effect through the hidden network. Within months, humans had established contact with 6 other species, each with their own story of Alteran oppression. Some had been isolated for centuries, others for only a few decades. All had continued to develop in their isolation, creating technologies and societies unknown to the Empire. As quantum communication linked these separated worlds, a new alliance began to form. Not an empire built on control and fear, but a coalition founded on mutual respect and shared goals. On New Horizon, Governor Susan Harris welcomed the first non-human visitors their colony had ever seen. The Novan delegates, with their iridescent skin and 4 arms, brought gifts and knowledge from their world 20 light-years away. "The Empire told us we were alone," said the Novan ambassador. "They said no other intelligent species existed in our region of space. For 300 years we believed we were isolated in the galaxy." Susan smiled. "They told us the same lie. But the truth is the galaxy is full of life and intelligence. And together, we're going to change the balance of power." 50 years had passed since Earth's rejection from the Galactic Empire. On this day, the Alteran High Command detected unusual energy signatures from multiple sectors of the galaxy simultaneously. Before they could investigate, their main communication systems activated without anyone touching the controls. The giant screens in the Imperial Council chamber lit up with images of beings from 27 different species. The Alteran councilors stared in shock. These were representatives from worlds they had isolated, worlds that should have no way to communicate with each other. In the center of these images stood a human man, Ambassador William Hudson, grandson of Admiral George Hudson, led this unprecedented gathering. "Greetings, Imperial Council," William said, his voice calm and confident. "We come to you today as representatives of the Galactic Coalition. Emperor Zorthak, once the young counselor who had delivered Earth's rejection, now sat old and bewildered on his throne. What is the meaning of this? How have you accessed our secure channels?" William smiled slightly. "The same way we've done many things you believed impossible, by working together despite your efforts to keep us apart." Beside William stood representatives from species the Empire had isolated over centuries. The 4-armed Novans, the crystalline Thelians, the floating Mir collectives, and many others. Each had been told they were alone. Each had been prohibited from joining galactic society for various stated reasons, and each had continued to develop in their isolation. The Galactic Coalition now encompasses over 300 worlds across the galaxy. William continued, "We've been united through the precursor network that you failed to destroy," the Alteran counselors whispered among themselves in growing alarm. How had these inferior species discovered the precursor network? How had they reactivated it? And, most troubling of all, how had they done this without the Empire detecting a single sign? "Humans did not create this coalition to conquer," William explained. "We connected these worlds. We shared technologies and resources that the Empire denied us all. And together, we've built something new." On Earth, now a thriving hub of interspecies exchange, the original members of Project Phoenix gathered at the Presidential Palace. President Olivia Bennett, now 93 years old, watched the broadcast with tears in her eyes. She had lived to see her impossible dream become reality. "They thought they could contain us," she said softly to those around her. "But the human spirit has never accepted boundaries." Dr. Richard Patel, leaning on a cane but with eyes still sharp and intelligent, nodded in agreement. "The irony is perfect. By prohibiting us from joining their empire, They forced us to build something better. In the council chamber, Emperor Zorthak attempted to regain control of the situation. This coalition of yours violates the foundational laws of the Empire. All of your worlds have been designated as prohibited. By whose authority? Asked the Novan representative. The authority of those who betrayed the precursors? Who stole their technology and used it to establish your control? We know the truth, added the Thelian delegate, her crystalline form glittering. We have all discovered the ruins, read the histories, learned how the Alterans seized power and then isolated any species who might challenge them. The Emperor's face darkened with anger. The Empire has maintained peace for 10,000 years. We have prevented the chaos that would come from allowing immature species to gain too much power too quickly. You've maintained stagnation, William corrected. Innovation frightens you. Change terrifies you, so you keep the galaxy frozen in place, with your species at the top and all others either serving you or isolated. Around the galaxy, billions of beings watched this exchange through the reactivated precursor network. On colony worlds and homeworlds, alike the inhabitants of the newly formed coalition witnessed the confrontation between the old order and the new. Aboard the coalition flagship UES Unity, Admiral Jason Ward, Elizabeth Stone's successor, watched with his officers. His fleet of 500 ships was spread throughout key systems, ready to defend coalition worlds if the Empire chose aggression over diplomacy. Do you think they'll attack? Asked his second-in-command. They might, Jason replied. But they've grown complacent. Their ships and weapons haven't changed significantly in centuries. They've forgotten how to innovate. In the council chamber, Emperor Zorthak stood from his throne. I could order our fleets to your worlds right now. The Empire still possesses the largest military force in the galaxy. William remained calm. You could, but consider what you'd be facing. 27 species with technologies that have developed along different paths than yours. We've studied your weapons and defenses. We know their weaknesses. Are you threatening us, human? Growled one of the counselors. Not at all. We do not come seeking war. William's voice softened. We offer the Empire membership in our coalition as equals, not rulers. The age of isolation and suppression is over. This caused a new wave of shocked whispers among the Alterans. The idea that their empire would join a coalition created by lesser species was unthinkable. The choice is yours, William continued. Continue to rule an empire that grows smaller as more worlds join us, or help us build a galaxy where all intelligent species can reach their full potential together. Emperor Zorthak sank back onto his throne. For the first time in his long life, he faced a situation the Imperial protocols hadn't prepared him for. These beings should have remained safely contained on their homeworlds. They should never have found each other. They should never have discovered the precursor network. I require time to consult with my advisors, he said finally. William nodded. Of course, we will maintain this communication channel. When you're ready to talk, we'll be waiting. As the transmission ended, Ambassador Hudson turned to his fellow coalition representatives. Now we wait. Will they choose peace? Asked the Mir delegate, its floating collective of light orbs forming a question pattern. I don't know, William admitted. The Alterans have ruled unopposed for millennia. It won't be easy for them to accept a new reality. And if they choose war? William's expression grew serious. Then we defend ourselves. But I believe they're practical enough to see that the galaxy has changed. Their choice is no longer between ruling or fighting. It's between joining us as equals or becoming irrelevant. On Earth, in the old White House Situation Room where Project Phoenix had begun 50 years earlier, President Diane Carter addressed her advisors. Unlike the first meeting, this room now included representatives from a dozen different species. Whatever the Empire decides, she said, today marks the beginning of a new era. Humanity's greatest achievement wasn't building ships or colonies or weapons. It was bringing together those who had been kept apart. Dr. Samantha Miller, now in Tuar, her 80s, smiled at the irony. They rejected us because they said we were too unpredictable, too creative, too difficult to control. They were right about that. And that's exactly why we succeeded, said General Carlos Reyes, Maria Sanchez's protege. Because when you tell humans they can't do something, we immediately start figuring out how to do it anyway. Finished. The president with a smile. Across the stars, across hundreds of worlds that had once been isolated and alone, beings of all kinds looked upward with new hope. The boundaries that had contained them were gone. The lies that had kept them apart had been exposed. And it had all begun because one species refused to accept the word no.